Follow the buzzer. Rest in peace. Woo! The best there is, the best there was, and the best ever will be. What you gonna do, brother? Hey, yo.
Can you see me now?
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Welcome to the JM Report. I'm your host, GoodOlJM, and this is episode 39, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And I hope everyone enjoyed their holiday week so far. Of course, New Year's is just around the corner. And Santa's been good to me. I gotta say, a few surprising gifts. Some, well, at least one was expected, because when someone asks you if you need anything and you just happen to mention, well, my Blu-ray player's been acting up, and lo and behold, you get a brand new one. And even that was a pain in the butt to link up, because it's one of those Wi-Fi smart Blu-ray players that do not come with speakers. You just gotta plug it in and link up the Wi-Fi signal of your house and enjoy, right? And rely on the TV volume. But I have these home theater speakers that I don't want to see go to waste. So I still don't know how I did it, but I did it in one shot. And turns out I was able to hook up the new and the old Blu-ray players with the TV. So now I can watch my movies on the new Blu-ray player while the sound goes through the old speakers and enjoy it on TV. So you figure that one out, guys. Sometimes projects like that just come out of nowhere and work out better when you realize that, you know, you're better than you give yourself credit for, you know. But with that said, obviously there wouldn't be much to talk about this week, as it was a long holiday week off. Well, not the entire week off, but I would say half the week off for, say, WWE superstars who just recently got back on the road the day after Christmas, kicking it off in New York City at the, well, it's become tradition, and I kind of missed that. I've maybe attended only one of the post-Christmas holiday tours. Not that that's the name of it, but the holiday tour that the WWE embarks after Christmas Day, and it goes through a little bit after New Year's. And it all depends when the holidays, in particularly land day of the week. As I mentioned last time on a JM Report, SmackDown and Raw were pre-taped right after their respective shows last week, well, actually 2 weeks ago now, after the final live edition of their shows. This week, we saw the end results. I will run down yet again, only with a little bit more details this time. I gave away spoilers last time with the results of each match, but not the details of what happened during the course of the show. And speaking of which, for New Year's Eve and Day will not be any different for the WWE's Raw and Smackdown shows, as they are being pre-taped. Matter of fact, Raw will be pre-taped tonight at the tonight in Detroit, Michigan. Matter of fact. That will be the New Year's Eve edition of Monday Night Raw. And the very next night in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, will be the SmackDown New Year's Day edition of SmackDown Live. So quite interesting. Didn't really get too many matches announced for those particular shows, other than the steel cage match between Dolph Ziggler, matter of fact, versus Finn Balor, which I'll get into in a little moment here as I run down the details of this week's Raw. Matter of fact, let's just get into it right away. And I just want to say, to close off the beginning here, that Hopefully everyone was on a good list and that you got everything you wanted from Santa. And let's bring in the new year with a bang. So again, Raw and SmackDown were pre-taped last week, and as it debuted this week on the USA Network. I mentioned the results last week of the shows, but did not mention the details that went on. So on Raw's opening, we saw Elias defeat Bobby Lashley in a Miracle on 34th Street fight. See what they did there. After using a bowling ball, a pile of Legos, where Lashley fell ass first on top of them, that had to, I won't see him bending over anytime soon. And Leo Rush at one point gets thrown through a Christmas dinner table that was set up on ringside. That was a hell of a bump that he took. Elias would hit a Lashley in the back with a cello and get the pinfall. Bobby Roode and Chad Gable would retain their Raw Tag Team titles versus the Revival. This was a great match. I got to watch this again, minus the commentary, good Lord. But this was an amazing match. It really shined the Revival's abilities and skills in the ring, keeping up with a Chad Gable that can really go. These three men in particular, no disrespect to Bobby Roode, but they can easily go and pull off one of those great Iron Man matches that we've seen from the days of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Ric Flair, Rick Rude. Ironically, there was another Rude involved here, but no relations. But I got to say, great technical match, a lot of reversals and offensive maneuvers in one tag match. Bobby Roode looked amazing as well. And I think a lot of Chad Gable's skills, for example, are really starting to shine with Bobby Roode's regular offense here. But a great match. However, Gable would pin Wilder. All of a sudden, there was an argument of possibly, and it was the case, that Chad Gable pinned the illegal man to retain the title. So hopefully they'll continue with this, and that the Revival, even though they've mentioned on the shakeup that there aren't going to be automatic rematch clauses or have the challengers or former champions demand a rematch on the next pay-per-view and just continuing with the same storylines over and over again, which is very smart. But in this case, unsure. Obviously, tonight we're more than 8 hours away, give or take, from the results from, let's say 12 hours. We're 12 hours away from finding out the results of tonight's Raw tapings. And who knows if the Revival will get even a rematch then. Maybe set it off for a live edition of Raw next week, or the following week, I should say. And maybe even at the Royal Rumble. So who knows? A lot of possibilities here, but definitely interesting enough to keep you tuned in to see if there is such if the Revival War indeed justified to get in a rematch here. Finn Balor wins the triple threat match against Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. And McIntyre still looked very strong here, as he was not the one that took the pinfall. It was Ziggler instead. However, Ziggler and Balor would have an exchange of words, and a brawl would ensue. They were broken apart by officials. And this will lead into probably the most strangest, promos or segments of Monday Night Raw, especially since the quote-unquote shakeup. We are introduced to Mr. McManta-Claus. Yeah. So, and verbally delivers presents for everyone for next week's Raw show that's being taped tonight. That we will see Dolph Ziggler take on Finn Balor in a steel cage match, furthering that feud, obviously. And probably the two biggest announcements to come out of Mr. McManta-Claus is that we will see the return of John Cena tonight and tomorrow, and then we'll have to wait till the Monday and Tuesday's airing. But I'm sure people would take to Twitter and Instagram and post a lot of spoilers. So Cena returning to Raw and SmackDown as they, I guess, continue on with the free agency nonsense. And the biggest announcement coming out of Mr. McManta-Claus, that he has indeed confirmed the return of women's tag team championships. I believe since 1988, we have not seen the WWE tag team women's titles. And I got to say, it's about damn time. And give a lot of credit to Becky Lynch. If you remember that Ace Comic-Con Q&A she had with Shinsuke Nakamura, I believe, earlier in the year. And she was asked a question by the fans, and in particular about the tag team titles for the women's division. And she said that she pitched it 2 years before that point in time. And I guess left it in the back burner, maybe, kind of, should have, would we, should we. And, I mean, 2 years. Thankfully, ratings and the rants and the frustration of the fans were more than enough to get their attention. And from all those battle cries, one of them was, oh, wait, I think they're talking about women's tag team titles. Why didn't we think of that before? It only took you 2 years. Well, nearly 3, matter of fact. But I'm glad to see this. I'm glad to finally hear this personally. As you can tell, as recent time, haven't been too many singles women's matches unless it's Ronda Rousey defending her title or Becky when she was the women's champion. Asuka only had one title defense so far since winning the title from TLC, on television anyway. And you notice a lot of pairings. Speaking of Asuka, she's been paired with Naomi for a long time. Ironically, defended her first time the title against Naomi after the shakeup was announced that on the last live SmackDown that they had. Of course, Bayley and Sasha have been linked at the hip for the longest time. We'll probably see Ronda and Natalya move forward, and I'll speak about their match here in a little bit. Of course, you got the Riot Squad. They can mix it up. I'm assuming the storyline, and I mentioned this before last week as well, that the feud, or lack thereof, between Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose have all been forgotten, so they can probably team up again. Curious to see where Paige is going to fit in all this. Maybe they can reform Absolution, as I mentioned it as well last week. I guess Alicia and Dana Brooke. Of course, we've been seeing Nia Jax and Tamina team up. Feel a little bad for Alexa Bliss. She's still not cleared yet to return from her injuries. Although I believe she was cleared from her concussion, that is, but not medically cleared from other injuries such as her arm, shoulder, and elbow, to be precise. So that's taken a while, and I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting names here. Mickie James, who was teaming up, or at least a sidekick of sorts for Alexa Bliss. And who else? I think that's it. I think I just ran down the entire women's roster. Well, yeah, there's the Iconics. Oh my goodness! You know what? Okay, I think that is it. Of course, we got the call-ups of Nikki Cross and oh my goodness, Lacey Evans, of course. Name almost slipped my mind, but again, I'm really excited about this. Curious to see exactly how they're gonna present it, and most likely a tournament, of course. But as many of you know, McMahon hates tournaments. Because, hence why we don't have King of the Ring anymore. But then again, there's that's the rumor that I had not mentioned at all. That definitely slipped my mind. But of the rumored Queen of the Ring concept, again, it'll be another tournament. I would assume it'll be Raw versus SmackDown kind of thing, which, again, McMahon didn't want to do for this past year's, or this year's Survivor Series, I should say. But, plans change, especially the ones that are out of your control. But either way, I mean, just what's old can be new again. How many fans of today, this generation, if they weren't told about it, know much about the King of the Ring concepts or tag team tournaments to determine new champions? I think WCW has done a lot of those. And if they went for tag team titles, they were for trophies, Battle Bowl, I think it was. Or what was that one that Sting won? I think there was Battle Bowl. It started off as tag teams, and then the winner of each match will meet again in a Battle Royal, and the winner of that Battle Royal will be the winner of the trophy. So, yeah, as ridiculous as it sounded, but you know what? It was different. But then at that time, times were different, but fans just weren't getting into it. It's like, why they team up, win a match, into a Battle Royal, the lethal lottery or whatever, and only one man is left standing. I can see how that could be not confusing, but well, maybe some confusion, but frustrating to a point where the people just don't get it. And I gotta admit, I didn't see any of those battle bowls or lethal lotteries till years later. But my mindset at the time was, you know what? Many people may not have gotten it or liked it, but at least it was different. At least WCW, for as many crazy ideas as they had throughout the years, especially in the early 90s, late 80s, it was different. After all, they're the ones that brought us War Games, and that concept was so popular, it returned, and it makes sense because WWE now owns it, the name at least, and they've done it for the past couple of years now for NXT takeovers. And you know what? It works, and it makes sense. But not to get too far off track here, after those announcements were made, we would see Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Ember Moon defeat Mickie James, Alicia Fox, and Dana Brooke, and then be attacked by the Riot Squad for no reason other than, I guess, just to get TV time, because they were never seen again. Paul Heyman was singing a spin-off of sorts of Silent Night, changing out the lyrics about Brock Lesnar beating the crap out of Braun Strowman during the Universal title match at the Royal Rumble. People pointed out how ironic it was for a man of Jewish faith singing a Christmas carol, but it was a spoof, folks. It was a spin-off or whatever you want to call it. It was a parody, so chill. Anyway, this brings on Braun Strowman, and without hesitation, dresses up Heyman as a reindeer of sorts, puts on the red nose and the antlers, and just got into his no sling, by the way, for Strowman here. As if you want to go by timeline, it's been 2 weeks since TLC, and he should be out of the sling. Doubtful, but I'll get into that. And tells Heyman that, listen, I'm the one that's going to beat up Brock Lesnar. I'm the one that's going to take his title from the Royal Rumble. And just leaves Heyman there standing looking all embarrassed. Ronda Rousey retained her WWE Raw Women's title versus Natalya, as the storyline here was Ronda showing that she didn't want to hurt Natalya. After all, it was Natalya, one of the main trainers that helped out Ronda Rousey during her beginnings in the Performance Center, and showed a lot of emotion here, a lot of good expressions from Ronda, I gotta say. If there's one thing she's good at, is showing a lot of emotions and selling too. She's gotten really good at that as well. But business is business. So after Ronda was able to escape a sharpshooter, she immediately jumps into an armbar, and Natalya taps out, and the two BFFs hug it out at the end. For no one, if there was one, I missed it, but really there was no explanation of Heath Slater dropping the referee shirt and just magically returning into the ring as a full-time roster member of a pro wrestler. And I believe the commentators were trying to explain that since the fall of Baron Corbin, that any and all changes or rules that he might have made in recent times have been reversed or just completely ignored, as Heath Slater took on his former tag team partner from 3 Minute Warning. Oh my goodness, wow. Meant to say 3-man band. I think the eggnog's still in my system. But the two former tag team partners went at it, only to end in a disqualification, as Heath Slater would win the match, as the Singh brothers would interfere. And for a minute, it was a 3-on-1 beatdown. But right before that happened, there was a Santa Claus in the audience tossing out some gifts, a lot of free WWE merchandise, mostly T-shirts. And all of a sudden you see said Santa Claus jump over the railing, get into the ring, and would, ironically, without certain commentators giving it away, announces a gore to Jinder Mahal and will fight off the Singh brothers. And long and behold, it was Rhino. Now, we've seen a lot of people use the gore in this case as a finishing move, or the spear, if you will, made very famous in modern time by Goldberg. But if you're trying to keep it a surprise, especially if the man is still in disguise, why in the hell would you announce it? Gore! Gore! Like, wait, what? Is that Rhino? I said it before, folks, that among the many things that they claim to have listened to the audience or listened to the fans or whatever, that the commentary, again, is not their fault. It's what they told her, what is being screamed in their ear or what's scripted. They seriously need to dial down a lot of this nonsense where they're giving away the ending way before it even happens or even moments before it happens, and you not have a proper reaction. How many times there will be a pinfall attempt, and as by the angle or how it's booked, there's going to be a 3 count. But then you hear Cole between counts 2 and 3 announcing that there's a new champion, and the bell hasn't even freaking rung yet. And it's like 1, 2, we have a new champion. 3, what is that bullshit? Because nowadays, especially since everybody kicks out of everyone else's finishing moves, and it's called a finishing move for a reason, it takes away not a lot, a little bit, but enough out of the match you just saw and more than likely enjoy to be that emotional to that point. But here, especially for a holiday edition of one of your shows, and using Santa Claus, to fight for what's right, and probably had his milk and cookies afterwards, hopefully, using a signature move that no one else uses but one man in a business named specifically for him because of his character's name, Rhino, or Gore. Now, I'm not going to take it as far as, there are going to be a lot of upset people that Santa Claus just gored someone. Like, no, relax, folks. This is just one of the many gripes I have, and I doubt it, but hopefully these will be one of the changes we'll see coming in the new era, the new era. Yeah, someone dubbed that spinoff or a parody of the NWO theme song, new era. Oh, man. In case you're wondering why I still do this or why I even watch, well, I've been doing it since 1987. And I probably just outed myself to reveal how old I really am. But you just don't mess with the basics. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yes, you got to change with the times, but at least common sense still exists. But I digress. So at the end of this, really no explanation about Rhino being reinstated. He just is. He's back. So that exclusive interview he conducted shortly after losing a You're Fired match with Heath Slater a couple of weeks ago. He did a post-interview backstage with, was it Charlie Caruso? I don't think it was. But there was an exclusive interview on Facebook where Rhino was addressing the rumors about him being retired. He denied those. He said he was going to fulfill the remaining contractual obligations he has with WWE, including the most recent South American tour that they had. But that was weeks ago, days ago. Here we are back in the States, and he's still on television. Again, the more than likely erasing whatever kayfabe, whatever Baron Corbin did. And we move on. Speaking of Baron Corbin, he was here in the main event versus Seth Rollins, and pretty good match. Just Rollins stomping on Baron Corbin for the win. And so what's next for Baron Corbin? I mean, he's been literally the rack of lamb, or not the rack of, this is how hungry I am. The sacrificial lamb for all the WWE mistakes and nonsense that's been going on for really years, but only recently been addressed by WWE themselves, especially the chairman of the board on television, no less. And no one really mentioned this, and I failed to do so as well last week, but they all did it in character. Well, what's the difference? Like, well, first of all, you don't announce the chairman of the board as Mr. McMahon and come out to theme music like that. You know, I get it. It's an entrance. It's a show. You know, you got to get that pop, even though those naive people in Sacramento that day were cheering like, yeah, he's here. He's here. Wait a minute. This product sucks. That's why we're here. We're really in protest. Anyway. Then you have, of course, Stephanie. You have Triple H. His name is not Triple H. It's Paul Levesque. The COO is Paul Levesque, not Triple H. And, of course, you got Shane McMahon. So more of a reason to not take anything under consideration, let alone seriously, from all four of these people about these changes. Once again, bad timing as they chose to do this before the holidays and not after. But I guess they got tired of hearing the nonsense. They got tired of being tagged on Twitter. And we shall see. Of course, this is not stopping the call-ups. This is not stopping the women's tag teams titles coming in. But I'm pretty sure there have been changes so far to accommodate every single thing that's been announced so far. With that and what I've mentioned up to this point, yeah, I'm not holding my breath. That's all I got to say. And as far as Baron Corbin goes with this character, I guess he's just going to keep eating it more and more every week that goes by until, I don't know, maybe he just gets so fed up with it that maybe he quits, heads over to SmackDown, quits enough to go all the way back to NXT and replace William Regal, even though William Regal really is the best GM we've had in such a long time. Yeah, Paige was pretty great as well. But Regal only appears when he needs to. Not throughout the whole freaking show, resolving every issue that just really can resolve itself. But anywho, according to the Showbuzz Daily, the Raw viewership this week, as expected, was pretty low. But unfortunately, combining with what's been going on as of late and being on a holiday, finished with the average of 1.775 million viewers. That's dramatically lower than last week's 2.547 million. Again, not much of a surprise, as Raw usually, not all the time, usually pre-tapes their holiday shows. And this time it airing on Christmas Eve. This marks the new all-time low for Raw. If you want to break it down hour by hour, at the from the 8 to 9 p.m. hour was a average of 1.752 million. From the 9 to 10 was 1.789 million. And from 10 to 11 was 1.784 million. So you got a bit of a rise there during the second hour, but no surprise again that during the third hour, numbers start dwindling. And I'm sure they haven't already, because I didn't bother to check, but I'm sure they're going to say stuff like, well, it's the holidays, everybody's out of town, blah, 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 blah. Over on SmackDown, R-Truth and Carmella open up the show. We get interrupted by WWE Champion Daniel Bryan, talking about the Royal Rumble, as Truth is number 30 in the men's Royal Rumble, and talking about maybe taking away Daniel Bryan's title, assuming he'll be still champion by the time they get to WrestleMania. As Bryan tried to rebuttal, a dance break breaks out, only for Bryan to attack R-Truth from behind, and Carmella just standing there. Oh my goodness, Carmella, you're better than this. Please, stop. No, stop. Yeah, no. Oh. I understand that they really don't want to have men and women be, I guess, interjecting like this, especially breaking up a fight. And, of course, we can't see men physically, I don't want to say assault, even though I just did, but interact physically with females. Maybe a shove. But Carmella just standing there like a lump on a log. Just, please stop. And nitpicking, folks. So this leaves R-Truth laid out completely, and Bryan just walks back, the new Daniel Bryan or whatever, and he, it is what it is. Mustafa Ali would defeat Andrade Cien Almas with the old 54 or the old 5-4. And a great match. I got to say, I definitely got to recommend this match. If you want a real pick-me-up kind of match, these guys really complemented each other's high-flying abilities and style. Although Andrade had a bit of a height advantage, but Mustafa kept up with him and vice versa, and it was a really, really great match. Really glad to see that they're focusing on a particular superstar from the 205 Live roster who's been promoted of sorts to the SmackDown roster and get this much attention. I mean, he's been on a roll. So far, he's been undefeated on SmackDown, so kudos to Ali. The Usos and the Good Brothers of Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows teamed up to take on Sanity and The Bar. Gallows hits the Magic Killer on Cesaro for the win, pinning one half of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. So, we'll see what picks up tomorrow night during SmackDown's tapings. Speaking of Mustafa Ali, we will see him again, only this time backstage with other members of the 205 roster, congratulating him and giving high fives and all, only to see Daniel Bryan attacking from behind. Again, Bryan attacking someone else and just leaves him for dead and walks away. The one main good thing about this is I'm glad to see 205 Live members interacting with main roster members. I believe Shelton Benjamin was there as well. So more of this, please. You know, they don't acknowledge each other much, the rosters that is. But for how long did we have SmackDown? And then immediately, if you were interested enough to tune in to the network and watch 205 Live, that was in the same venue, same audience that SmackDown just had. And even then, they could have still had interactions, have guest spots, or maybe someone in the background, or maybe AJ Styles do a cameo and on a 205 Live show. But no one's asking me, folks. Miz TV would have Shane McMahon as a special guest, and The Miz revealed that his own father loves Shane more than The Miz, or at least in the ring. And Miz says in order to prove himself to his father, that he will want to team up with Shane and show that he can be just as good as Shane, I guess, because Shane is still the best in the world. Can't finish saying that sentence. Shane agrees and teams up by saying, "You better not screw me." I wonder what's going to happen here, or eventually. This comes off last week's blessings from Vince McMahon himself to The Miz. Go team up with Shane, but first, even Vince wanted Miz to prove himself as well. He did, defeating R-Truth in a mixed tag team match back then. Jeff Hardy taking on Samoa Joe, ending in a double countout as Joe will slap on the Coquina clutch and leaves Jeff Hardy laid out. And I noticed, as well as many people have pointed out, how ironic or eerie similar, since we're talking about Samoa Joe's and Jeff Hardy's angle here, where Jeff Hardy admitting to battling demons, and there wasn't of a more apparent time in his career when he was in TNA or Impact Wrestling back in 2011, having that infamous Sting match at what was it called, Victory Road, for the Impact title, and Hardy was unable to compete, unfortunately being under the influence. And it was a quick minute and a half match, not even. Point being that Hardy was wearing a very similar outfit than he did that day at Impact Wrestling versus Sting, as he was here at the SmackDown tapings. So, yeah, very eerie, to say the least. Hopefully, I don't think they could use, well, they've done it before, but particularly moving forward on WWE programming, on WWE TV, that can use the competitors' footage like they did for the Hardy Boys documentary last year, which I thought is amazing and definitely worth rewatching. But in order for them to, I guess, further the storyline between Samoa Joe and Jeff Hardy here, they don't have to resort to that, meaning showing footage. And they can talk what they've been talking about, which is fine. And it's been acknowledged many, many years and many times. So, yeah, it's almost difficult to sit through those stories that really hit home for a lot of people. They've been there before, ironically, with Chris Jericho and CM Punk before, even previously with Jeff Hardy and I believe one time Shawn Michaels. So, yeah, it's great to go back to what used to work before. I just hope that it involved different people, but I don't know, kind of see it in. And I just hope it doesn't really go too boring and it doesn't get dull too soon. But at least Hardy and especially just Samoa Joe is getting TV time out of this. So kudos. Backstage, we see Jimmy Uso and Mandy Rose under a mistletoe. And they were about to maybe fulfill that, I guess, obligation. But Naomi shows up and chases away Mandy Rose, only to come back and start making out with her real-life husband because, sure, why not? We needed to see some slobbering going on. And in the main event, we will see Rusev defeat Shinsuke Nakamura for the United States title, as Rusev Day now celebrates every day as the United States champion for the WWE. I guess they needed a good ending, go home happy ending for the audience there, especially sitting there for nearly 4 or 5 hours. It was worth it. I'll just leave it at this. Has the United States title really meant anything in the past few months? Honestly. And I don't mean that because Shinsuke Nakamura's had it for how many months now and hasn't really defended it. And, of course, there was that rumors about contract negotiations and whatnot. And here we are, him dropping the belt to Rusev. But I don't know. That particular title hasn't really meant much, at least not in my eyes. Shake up, people. We're still waiting on it. But the show did not end there, as we will see AJ Styles backstage, and he runs into Vince McMahon. And Vince was suggesting that AJ has this inner animal, this inner demon inside of him that he will want to see released and unleashed. Well, you still have Batista's phone number, don't you? Anyway, seemingly to prove his point, Vince McMahon will slap AJ Styles in the face. And Styles, just like everyone else, was shocked and awed by this maneuver from Vince, and probably reacted just like most of us would and just slap Vince McMahon right back and beat him down to the ground and have officials break up the fight. And the last thing we see is McMahon on the ground, seemingly confused, not unconscious or anything like that. Just, hey, I got him to hit me. So what is the dealio here between now Vince McMahon? AJ Styles may or may not be going after the title again with Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan's caught up with his own feud with Mustafa Ali. So, yeah, are these the segues into new storylines for the new shakeup of what's happening now with the WWE title? Is a former 205 Live roster member going to go after the main WWE championship on the SmackDown roster? I'm not complaining. I'm just asking these questions because if you're confused as I am, then yeah. Either way, it's good. Pretty much anyone, if you get involved with Vince McMahon on television and the storyline, you're pretty much a made person there. Hopefully you just won't fade away into existence. But yeah, that's your Raw and SmackDown reviews from the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day coverage. And of course, Raw is being taped tonight. Tomorrow night will be SmackDown's tapings, and we will know those results, obviously, within a few hours. However, we won't see them actually until New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, respectively, next week. Road Warrior Animal took to his podcast, What a Rush, and shared his thoughts, among other things, on women main eventing in the WWE. And I'm going to quote the man here. He said, first off, on giving the WWE fans what they want, and this is in response to the shakeup that McMahon had announced a couple of weeks ago. If the McMahons are really listening to the fans and they want to do what they have to do to make the fans happy, You have got to have a line drawn in the sand on who the bad guy is and who the good guy is. That's what the fans want. They want someone to believe in. They want someone to cheer. They want someone to boo. They want someone to hate. You can't change the wrestling business that's been based for 150 years on this kind of principle. Now all of a sudden you have good guy versus good guy. Come on. They want to have a line drawn in the sand, because when you make it too confusing for them, they can't cheer for Asuka in the same way that you all of a sudden cheer for Becky Lynch in the same match. You just can't do and end up making matches horrible. Okay. His thoughts about women main eventing in the WWE. There's a problem in the wrestling business. Yes, the women's movement is growing, but when the women are in the main event and they have the best matches on your card, that's an issue. Now listen to what he said here, and I'll have a little bit more of my thoughts about this. But when the women are the main event and have the best matches on your card, there is an issue. He's not directly, at least from the way I see it, bashing women wrestling at all. This is a compliment, the way I see it. The women having better matches and the main event, and everyone else, I guess, being men. There's a problem there? Well, I doubt it has anything to do with their skills or abilities in the ring, but more rather the booking and creative. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. On Becky Lynch, though, specifically, he says, I will let her back off the man thing and let her just be a pure white meat babyface that doesn't quit. Those are the kind of baby faces that work when you come out there with the attitude and strutting your stuff like she's some kind of tough guy. Come on. Jesus Lord, anybody that's ever been in a fight can see right through it. And I'm just being realistic because that's what works in this business. You've had to think, shoot, and work to shoot. And right now, they aren't taking advantage of their stars who are stars. Now, this is my, I guess, editorial point of this subject, of this topic here. I have spoken with Animal over the phone before, and he seemed like a very humble man, very peaceful man. Of course, when he's not in the Animal character, a whole different story. And I'm here not to defend him. However, what I believe here is he comes from an old school mind frame of the business, and possible coming off the heels of the shakeup of the announcement that was made by the McMahons earlier in the week, 2 weeks ago. And Animal's asking for more out of these superstars, and it starts with creative and booking. And I think of finding that balance of talent, and when women can main event a pay-per-view or a TV show, it can be very difficult. To make everyone happy is difficult. That should also be a part of the fine line Animal is talking about here. I'm sure he'll have a follow-up real soon, as he talked about Tyler Breeze, and Mr. Breeze didn't take too kindly to his words, and I'm just saying Animal's been in the business a lot longer, and a lot of the recent superstars may disagree with his point of view, because he was in the business for years. Now he's not, and yeah, times have changed. And Animal did point that out as well. But it's his point of view, and I've always said for a long time and for many times that you can still do it the old-fashioned way. Because, yeah, I agree. It can still work. It can still be tweaked a little bit enough where it's not too familiar or obvious. But I think if you're not offended by what he said or insulted or just one of those head scratching moments, then you could see his point of view. I do. Matter of fact, I see the point of view of both sides. And maybe it's just out of frustration or the recent exhausting tours that they had the past few months, WWE that is, between Becky Lynch before and after she had the championship. Tyler Breeze, at least Tyler Breeze was getting TV time as of late. He showed up at NXT for a North American Championship Open Challenge, later on for Intercontinental Open Championship Challenge. So it's just a matter of finding, again, that balance to make as not everyone, but as many as people as happy as possible. Usually it's the fans, but a lot of folks backstage, the talent especially, man or women, can get equally frustrated finding out that they're not being used, but they still have to show up for work. So where is the fine line? How do you find it? Who knows? If you have an idea, leave it in the comments below. According to Dave Meltzer, he took to the Wrestling Observer radio show talking about the new wave of NXT call-ups and had a few interesting things to say about them. He reports that Triple H does not want any of the big NXT call-ups to fail because that reflects badly on him and the NXT brand. Where the hell have you been, Meltzer? This has been happening. Anyway, he goes on to say, Meltzer does, that the next wave of the announced NXT call-ups is not considered to be big names, so them flopping would not really be considered a failure to NXT. Mr. Meltzer. Lars Sullivan is an exception to as he is expected to be getting a very big opportunity to make a name for himself. So if he fails, it will be due to lack of effort on his part. Well, as if he doesn't, Mr. Sullivan, as if he doesn't have enough pressure as it is. Meltzer will go on to say about Kairi Sane and Io Shirai were also potential names that could have been called up, but many backstage feel that McMahon would not know what to do with them and would quickly get lost in the shuffle. An example of this is Asuka, already on the main event roster and doing well. Of course she's been doing well. She won the freaking Royal Rumble, lost a winning streak at WrestleMania. Fast forward to the end of the year, finally a women's champion on SmackDown. And Meltzer will finish off by saying Vince would more than likely only want one Japanese female superstar at a time. Well, if that's the case, I call racist on that, but that's just me, folks. Then again, you can't really assume this. I mean, has there been any evidence? I guess so. When lack of international wrestlers are being pushed or promoted or whatnot, although people sometimes forget that when Finn Balor was pushed, it wasn't mentioned as much until after the fact, but how often do you see an Irishman get pushed? Oh, wait, Hulk Hogan. I get what Meltzer's trying to say here, but, seemingly putting words into other people's mouths. But then again, this is a lot of Meltzer styles here, so it is what it is. I just hope all of these current NXT call-ups that we're expecting in the next few weeks do really well. If there's any truth to Triple H's concern or frustration, especially from recent years of all the NXT call-ups, not all of them have been that successful, but the majority of them have failed and few of them have been released. The Wyatt family, for example, have done really well, two of which have been on and off again as far as restarting their characters, Rowan and Harper. I have no clue when Bray Wyatt's returning, although he's been making the rounds at live events. Of course, we know the story with Braun Strowman. The Shield. Adam Rose, well, McMahon giveth, McMahon taketh away, I guess. Apollo Crews, just to name a few. And it all comes down to the creative team and the writing team and the booking. And I missed this last week, where one Jimmy Jacobs, a now former WWE writer and former TNA competitor, conducted an interview. And in said interview mentioned something that a lot of us feared, that he confirmed. And I even acknowledged this too a while ago, about who was Vince McMahon trying to entertain, himself or the audience? Well, I was half right, and Jacobs confirmed everything else, that when it came to delivering the final script, if you will, leading up to that finalization, himself and other writers would question themselves about whether or not Vince McMahon will approve and whether or not he will like it. He was aware of all of Vince McMahon's humor, such as toilet humor, fart jokes, and all that stuff, that there wasn't enough of them or anything that would substitute for it. And that the concern was Vince himself has to like this before it reaches air, because, of course, Vince has final say in everything. So in short, Jacobs and the rest of the writing crew were more concerned about satisfying Vince McMahon and not the damn audience. You, sir, automatically fail as not only a writer, but any kind of creative anything, if it's considered at any point your creation, your idea to an extent, and that you're satisfied with it. And you can get second opinions. Hell, third, fourth, fifth, until the cows come home's opinions, before it goes up to your supervisor or your boss or the guy at the end of the table for final approval. I've been there, and I know how difficult it can be. I defended, in a sense, the creative team, how difficult of a job they have. But after hearing this, I take back everything I say. You are the first person that needs to be satisfied and happy with what you brought together, what you made, what you created. In this case, what you wrote down to paper or printed out or whatever you do. And when presenting it to the boss, in this case, you point out everything that you like. You see what I did here? You have Cesaro do this and Sheamus does that. The New Day will do this with the pancakes. Even if he says no, like, oh, but Vince, hold on. Go this way, go that way kind of thing. I thought of this, or it will make sense that way. If none of these words are spoken, then, sir, you are a failure as a writer, and find something else to do as for a career. TV shows, TV writers, SNL does not go through something like this, where the concern is satisfying the boss. I don't want to go any further with this topic before I say something out of context, but I was really upset when I heard that. Hell, I even read the transcripts of said interview because I couldn't believe what I heard. How about we change of course here? Leading into Wrestle Kingdom, as Hiroshi Tanahashi has announced he is re-signing with New Japan Pro Wrestling, making the announcement over Twitter, as Tanahashi will take on Kenny Omega for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at the Tokyo Dome on January 4th. And this contract renewal may have some fans thinking about Kenny Omega, about whether or not retaining and second guessing themselves, the fans, that is. Once again, we're reaching that point in time. We're reaching that point of year about Kenny Omega. Will he stay? Will he go? Will he make an appearance at the Royal Rumble? I'm glad to hear announcements like this, like Tanahashi did. Before any rumors begin, before any stories start circulating that aren't true, he just jumped the gun. Not jumped the gun, but just got ahead of everyone else and said, "Hey, I'm resigning. So don't bother making up rumors." With Kenny Omega, as of late, I think he literally negotiates down to the wire, down to the last minute, and he eventually works something out. And I'm a fan of his work. Great matches with Cody, great matches with AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Unfortunately, some of that, if not all of it, will not transfer well into WWE, as we saw at a WrestleMania main event of AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura for a title. They tried, I'll give them that, but wasn't nowhere near the level of a New Japan wrestling match. Should it be that way? No, not necessarily, but they were almost shackled in comparison to the skills and capabilities that they can do in the ring and to perform on a big show like WrestleMania. I don't know if that's going to be part of the shakeup, but we'll find out. Tanahashi would say, the contract renewal with New Japan Wrestling, I will do my best next fiscal year too. Hashtag NJPW. Well, Wrestle Kingdom won't air until 3 a.m. in the morning on January 4th Eastern Time. I did it last year, and boy, what a mistake that was. But I think I'll catch the replay later on that day. So definitely avoiding spoilers until I do so. Shifting gears yet again, John Cena is truly over Nikki Bella, apparently, as Page 6 is reporting during a press tour for the Bumblebee movie, which is a great movie, by the way. Cena did a great job. Reporters at the Empire State Building on December 20th, lighting of the building, were told not to bring up the engagement between Cena and Nikki Bella that lasted for about 11 months after WrestleMania 33, only for Cena to call off the wedding altogether, supposedly getting cold feet, but it was called off entirely. And Cena would say the following: for Christmas, I want to spend time with the folks I love. And then after that, I'm coming back the day after Christmas to the WWE event, which was at the Madison Square Garden show back on Wednesday, matter of fact, of this week. Cena would have a match between Baron Corbin, as Braun Strowman was originally set to face Corbin. However, Strowman is still recovering from his elbow surgery, which makes you wonder how the end of TLC would have been for Baron. But once again, made no sense to rush back Braun Strowman. He was still in a sling and did absolutely nothing other than put a foot on the chest to Baron Corbin to win a TLC match. Either way, he was covered, he was protected, Strowman was, but obviously disappointing the fans that not to have a monster, but to have a Cena. So everything's right with the world. Ken Shamrock is scheduled to take on Filthy Tom Lawler at the end of January, as they will headline the Ultimate Bar Brawl on January 31st in Atlanta. Tickets have yet to be posted, but also scheduled for that event is Penelope Ford taking on ODB. And this will be the return of Ken Shamrock ever since November, as he went over to Australia's Battle Championship Wrestling and defeated Gabriel Wolf via submission, and would eventually win that promotion's tag team championships with Carlo Canyon. Good to see that Shamrock is still active. He's still a beast. Of course, big change as he scaled down a lot in weight. A big difference, obviously, since the Attitude Era, but the man is staying healthy, staying in good shape, and good to see him staying busy, definitely. And I'll wrap up here with a couple of more stories, and I got a nice announcement to make here at the end. If you follow this sort of thing, the WWE stock went back up nearly 10% yesterday, matter of fact, as the price opened at $66.97 and would end with an impressive $73.20. That's an increase of over $6, although the highest that they ever saw this year was at $97.69 just a few months ago. Ironically, around the time of the event that took place at Parts Unknown. So kind of rebounding, kind of, sort of. This week, I understand there was a major fall, major decline in the stocks, nearly 500 points one day, and then like another 200 or 300 points the other, and then rebound nearly 1,000 points after Christmas. So again, I don't really follow these things, but it's interesting to see how the world reacts to certain things. And in this case, WWE was hit pretty hard, at least in the stock exchange, during that time period of November's Parts Unknown event. Real One, or Enzo Amore, did a show at the West Side Comedy Club this past Thursday night and explained his appearance that's been stamped as controversial at the Survivor Series that saw him get kicked out of the arena. And Justin Bizarro, Justin Barrazzo, via Twitter, by the way, from Sports Illustrated, shared a few videos from Real One explaining his actions of that interesting night in Los Angeles. As Enzo would say, it had nothing to do with his music, as he released an album that same week, a matter of fact. And he went on to say, I did it because I knew for the fact that Vince McMahon would hate it more than anything in the world, but he would respect the fuck out of it. That's why I did it. It was about one person. I proved him that I can beat him at his own game of statistics and numbers. I don't even work for your company. I broke no laws, and I bought a ticket, which is true. It was all that. Up until the point where he revealed himself and stood on the chair, everything was fine. He also pointed out the hilarious details of being taken down and thrown out. And the security personnel, Lisa, made famously since WrestleMania from Orlando a couple of years ago. I looked at her and said, Lisa, I'm a good person, and you know it. It was the most intimate moment I've had with a woman in years. Lisa said, according to Enzo, you got to go see Vince. Enzo says, I don't work here, Lisa. All of a sudden she says, you got to go. And then I see the cops coming, security coming from every angle. And then I looked at her and just said, I deserve better. Then she slowly let go of his shirt. And as the cops and security officers were closing in, Enzo says, I'm out, and busted out of the side door and had an Uber waiting for him and took pictures with two fans and then hopped in his Uber and drove off. How you doing? At least he's in good spirit with this after the fact. Here we are over a month since this incident's happened. And if it's for the sake of staying relevant, I guess, but good to know that no further charges were brought or no further troubles will come towards Enzo now, other than the fact that he's been banned from the Staples Center. Hopefully he keeps this in mind in case anyone suggests or recommends him as an opening act for someone else performing at the Staples Center, and he can't. He is banned. So that will wrap things up here. I'm surprised I even had much to go just over an hour, considering that has been a slow week. I'd expect next week not to be as slow, but hopefully picks up a few things as far as any stories to share here. I felt that these were more of the important ones. Of course, you got other stories out there, but they mostly lean on personal things that are going on. Not all bad, but personal things that are going on with superstars from around the world. And I just choose not to share them unless it leads to something bad, and I'll leave it at that. So hopefully you tune in right after this with my upcoming episode of Talking with JM, as my special guest will be Janine Bassoon. You know her as Hollywood from the original Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, as you're joining me here in the studio via telephone. And we'll discuss everything and anything from her humble beginnings to how she got into Glow, Afterglow, what she's been up to ever since, and all points in between. Should be very exciting, and I'll definitely have that link up available as soon as possible. But of course, this one needs to be linked up as well. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, have a happy New Year. Let's bring in 2019 with a bang. Have a few shots of champagne, and if you're going to propose, I'll say this much. First of all, congratulations and good luck. And I heard Jam is a pretty good name for your firstborn child. I kid. But seriously, everyone, enjoy your new year. Give everyone an extra hug. And have fun. So until next time, be good and be safe.
Open my eyes, leave it all behind. So open your mind.